Welcome, I'm Bev Adams. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. We love making cards as a creative outlet, but sometimes we forget to actually send the cards. So number one tip for today is use those cards. Send birthday cards. It means so much to people to get a handcrafted card in the mail. So get the birthdays for your friends and for your family members and put it in your calendar, whether you create a calendar like I did in January, or whether you use a digital calendar like I really use for myself, or a wall calendar so you can see what birthdays and other events are coming up and actually send cards. I do have the link for this project, and I do have a calendar there, and I added some extra special days like National Grandparents' Day is coming up in September on the 10th. Maybe you would like to send a card to your grandparents, or maybe as a grandparent you would like to celebrate Grandparents' Day by sending a card to your grandchildren. The nice thing about digital calendars is you can have those days repeat every year, and you can actually put the addresses in with those reminders so you don't have to look that up. And I recommend that you buy stamps. I try and buy fancy stamps and keep them on hand so that you'll be ready to mail those cards. But sometimes the greeting isn't exactly what you would like, or something else you want to change. This was a swap that I took to an event. Usually card swaps are the size of a card, but they're only the card front. And so I had some extra of these. I usually put the products that I use on a swap. I don't need that, so I can pull that off. And if I wanted to use this for a card front, I would want to cut this down, so I just need to pull up this ribbon a bit. So I can just slice 1/4 of an inch off that side and 1/4 of an inch off that side. Now that it's cut down, I can put the ribbon back around it and put this on a card base. I want to check the colors that I used. I'm using my paper sampler, and so I used powder pink, and I believe that was Berry Burst, yes. And this is, I'm sure, Tranquil Tide. Tranquil Tide. And so I could use any of those colors for a card base, or Whisper White. Let's see what it looks like on Whisper White. That looks fine. And I have I think I like it on the powdered pink. So I can either adhere it flat or with dimensionals. For this video, I just will adhere it flat with Fast Fuse. And that will be a card from a swap. After that swap, I created this similar card that I shared at one of my groups, but maybe I want to use this specifically for a birthday, so let me swap out just my embellishment. This was put on with a dimensional, and so I could just pull it off, but a heat tool does really a nice job of softening up the adhesive, and I find if I just kind of rub it gently, those will come off. And I thought I'd make this into a birthday card. So I have Happy Birthday from Birthday Blossoms, and I'll stamp that on a scrap of Whisper White. And I'll use that same label punch and punch that out. And I think I probably want to have some sort of decoration on there. So I think what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of the sleeves from Touches of Texture onto the edge of this stamp. And that was Tranquil Tide. And I'll just put a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom. And that will be pretty. And I actually think it needs a little bit more, so I'm going to sponge around the outside. Yeah, so I think I just need to add another couple of dimensionals on here, and make this into my birthday card. Like so. This was another card that I made recently, and I love this card. It's so beautiful. But again, maybe I want a different greeting, so I'll bring in my heat tool again and remove just that one panel. I'm not sure which adhesive. I tend to use Fast Fuse, which is not very helpful for removing, but a piece of dental floss underneath sometimes will be helpful getting underneath. And a little patient persuasion, and that finally came off. And so I can just recreate that panel. That I measured it, and it was 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. And I believe, yep, Pear Pizzazz. And I think that was Dapper Denim. Yes. And I think that was So Saffron. I use Flower Shop, so I've got my Flower Shop stamp, and I'll just kind of recreate that panel. So I'll just stamp my petals. So I'll use the Dapper Denim. And you know, I think that I'm going to do something a little different. I think I'm going to do the Best Day Ever on this one. Then I'll stamp Happy Birthday right over that card. And Celebrate You over here. And put that panel back in place. And I have repurposed this card. Sometimes you can really rework the whole card. So I've got another recent card I made, the old heat and dental floss trick to remove the ribbon of courage. Again, I need to rub off the dimensionals. They come off fairly easily. I know I will need to cover this, but I'm actually going to turn this whole card and put a butterfly. I'm going to cut out the butterfly's thinlets on Pumpkin Pie. So I'm bringing in my precision base plate for this detailed thinlet. Cover it up, and I'll run this through the Big Shot. And I want to pull in my Big Shot die brush. I think I will pop this up with a few of the new mini dimensionals. And position it carefully. And I'll put my greeting here. I have a scrap of Berry Vanilla. And I'll stamp Thank You. I think I will use the same soft suede. And I need to put this layer on at least as big as that. So I'll measure this to make sure I have it wide enough. 1 1/4 inches should be plenty. I want these to be flagged the same. Very shallow flag here. So I'll just slide this over here. I want to trim just a little bit more. There we go. And this becomes a whole totally different card, different color, and yet these were the same card. Maybe somebody sent you this card and they have written all over it. That doesn't mean you can't reuse this again. You can cut another panel to go right inside. I always like to leave a little bit of a border. And so as long as you've got a fairly even border all the way around, and as long as nothing shows through on the other side, you can add another layer on the inside of your card and reuse that card that way. Of course, if you are making a lot of cards, you can always leave that greeting off until you're ready to use it, but maybe you still have a lot of extra cards. You can give these to someone who could use those cards. Do you have an elderly friend or relative that has a hard time getting out and about to buy cards? It would be a lovely gift to give them some cards and the stamps to go with them. You can always send them to the Ronald McDonald House Charities. You can send them to the military, but do check with the place you're going to send them to make sure that they can accept them. Sometimes an unexpected box at a military base is not something that they would like to have, so check before you send it. Retirement homes are another place that can use cards, or you can make a box and turn it into a gift. I know a friend that's what she gives for gifts, is a box with maybe a dozen or two cards in it, and that's a lovely, lovely gift that her friends really appreciate. Bottom line is, if you've got extra cards, do make use of them. If you would like a paper sampler so you can check your colors, or if you want more ideas for creativity or organization, come on over to bevadams.com. Talk to you soon. Bye.